Today, a high school diploma doesn't mean shit. Everybody knows it, too. It's been a long time since it's mattered. Like, really mattered, because it's really just an attendance certificate now. Generations ago, like boomer generations ago, you could have the realistic expectation of going through first grade through 12th grade and calling it a academic career. Don't go to undergraduate, you don't go to a vocational school, you don't really do anything else. And you could find a career path where it was realistic, where you could become a member of the middle class or maybe even higher. If you wanted, quote, real money, you'd go to college. That's what they would say. Well, today, we all know that the basic foundation of everything in terms of trying to make a living is now being told to us that it has to be a college education, which in a lot of ways kind of says from the jump that high school doesn't mean shit anymore. But when did it mean shit? Basically when the boomers were going to school. And that's one of the reasons why their heads are up their asses now and they're saying all the stupid shit that they're saying about kids today being lazy and they just have to work harder and all that crap. They're fucking clueless. They don't understand that education has stagnated since they went to school. Just imagine somebody who was a boomer who went to high school and they graduated, or hell, they didn't even graduate. They dropped out and they became a mechanic. Now imagine becoming a mechanic when you're a boomer in your teens and early 20s. Imagine the technology that you'd have to deal with. Like none. Wrenches and shit like that. I mean, in the academic world, they had almost no technology. They had slide rules and shit like that. And maybe the instructor had a calculator or whatever, but technology was nothing for them. They didn't have to deal with it almost on a minute-to-minute basis, personally, professionally, academically, and just gets bigger and bigger and bigger every day, every week, every month, every year. If somebody today graduates from high school and becomes a mechanic, they better fucking know a lot of tech. Or they better be able to learn a hell of a lot of tech, because cars today are basically computers on four wheels. So what our stagnated high schools have done have essentially stolen some of the best years of our children's lives, their most formidable years physically, intellectually, emotionally. We all know this to be true. Anybody who's gone through high school recently knows this is true. Anybody who knows somebody who's gone through high school recently knows this is true. Why the fuck don't we change it? Why don't teachers change it? Relatively speaking, they're not that far away from that horror show that was high school for them. And they should say, yeah, this is bullshit. I'm not perpetuating this crap anymore. I'm just going to be teaching tests. I want to help these kids get ready for when school is over, because one day it does end. It does. And if you're not ready for it, it doesn't fucking matter. It's over. What about administrators? Forget them. They're not going to do anything. Administrators are paper pushers. Administrators want to avoid bad phone calls or bad emails. They want everything to be real quiet. Come on, let's just get through the year. Let's just get through the year. So you can figure about administrators helping. And don't even get me started about parents. I mean, fuck them. They're useless. It falls on you. It falls on your classmates. It falls on all of you to demand more. And if you have to, change the environment. Why not? Why go along with it? You're not getting the value of what you're putting into it. You're also being taught things that aren't going to help you, while you should be taught things that are going to help you. It's bullshit.
You're listening to Six Finger Learning with Jason Bree.
Hey kids, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are, wherever you are. I'm glad that you landed here right now. So we spend a lot of time hating on higher education, hating on colleges and universities because they suck. They don't have the value that they ought to have. Well, if you take those feelings and magnify them by 50, you get pretty close to how we feel about high schools in America. Now, before we go any further, this is just an introduction, high-level shit, very general. We're not going to be getting into bullshit public school, private school debates and, vocational school and different programs and stuff like that right now. We will get into all of that later. We're just going to speak generally so that we have a common starting point. We're going to be talking about high school in terms of 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. We're going to be thinking very generally speaking about populations. There's going to be the population of people who are willing and able to go through that whole I'm going to go to college thing. And then the other group of people who aren't either willing or able to go through college thing. Because that's important to distinguish the two, because that's really the only two kinds that you get. So let's start by looking at 9th grade. Okay, what the fuck is going on in 9th grade? How is it different from 8th grade? Really 7th grade? I mean, how far back do you have to go before you find a difference? I mean, maybe you're going to a new building now, and maybe it's a bigger building. And maybe the kids going around don't look so young. They look older. They look more like adults or something. But the setup is generally the same. You're listening to fucking bells, and you're getting up and you're going into a room and sitting in a desk, and somebody at the front of the room is saying things or showing you things or whatever. You're watching videos. You're doing labs. You're just taking tests and then ring, and you go do that again and ring, and it's different subjects. It's English, it's history, it's science, it's a foreign language, it's PE, it's lunch. Now it's other shit and blah, 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 blah. It's the same shit. Why is it the same shit? Some kids, yes, can be those outliers that kind of go out and do the higher level classes. Maybe you have a freshman taking sophomore, junior, whatever, science or math. Why is it the same thing? You're not that far away from 1 through 12 being over, and you have to be ready for that ending. It's 9th grade. You're not getting ready for it to be over. You are deep in it. We think, given what education is all about in America, which is getting into the economic engine, and staying there for a while and making a living and ideally being happy. That's what we're supposed to be doing, right? Well, why can't freshmen in high school spend 20% of their time in a completely different type of curriculum that will go through their entire high school career that focuses on business plans, that focuses on financial literacy, that actually enables you to go out and get a job? Now, I'm not talking about you just go out and get a job, you dropped off, and that's it. I'm talking about you get a job and you come back to school and you talk about that job. And you talk about what you see in terms of the processes and what you see in terms of the culture and what you see in terms of how things work with management and when do you lead and when do you follow and what's it like having to get up early? What's it like having to call in? What's it like? All of that shit that you're not going to be that fucking far away from. Why isn't that becoming something that's important to study? That's important to have an actual curriculum behind it. We know that there's kids that go out there and get jobs, but they're not really told anything about how they can use that job, how that job is going to teach them and show them things that they can take to the classroom, but more importantly, they can take further through life. It's not deliberate at all. It should be required. And not only should it be required, the students should get paid. They should be making money. I mean, just think about that. that's a pretty good incentive to stay in high school. I'm making fucking money. We understand that some of the things that we're discussing requires a lot of changes in a lot of different areas. There would need to be a lot of additional assessments, observations, simulations. There would need to be considerations for supervision, making sure that kids weren't being exploited in any way, more financial literacy. Hey, you got $300 this week on your paycheck. What are you going to do with it? Well, here are some things that you should consider. Also, in this fantasy world that we're creating where high school actually starts to fucking matter, local businesses would be encouraged with incentives, tax breaks. Also, they should want to get involved with opening up their doors to high school kids as early as 9th grade because they understand that they're going to have to reteach all these kids when they leave high school anyway. Why not try to teach these kids sooner rather than later? Why not, if you're not using it for recruiting, so to speak, why aren't you just trying to give back to the community? Why doesn't Mercedes-Benz in Vance, Alabama, not make the most kick-ass math, science, STEM textbooks that you can imagine and just pass them out to free to all the schools in Alabama? Why aren't there tax incentives for that? Just imagine the math books that you could get from Mercedes, and they'd be applicable to making cars. It would have real-world application. I mean, all of this goes on and on. I'm kind of getting off track. I apologize. 9th grade sucks, but it doesn't have to. Now you go on to sophomore year. Sophomore year, you look at the studies. Sophomore year really shows you the insidious side of education in America because you've spent a fucking decade minimum in the system, right? A decade. And you're what? 16, 17 years old? So well over half your life. You've kind of just birthed your consciousness through this process and through this system. And where are you at when you are a sophomore? You are fixated on looking good on paper. I've got to get this GPA. I've got to get these test scores. I've got to become the secretary of the fucking Spanish club, and I've got to be in the band, or I'm going to play football, or I'm going to play softball, or I'm going to do this, and I got to get letters of rec, and I've got to do all this community service and stuff so that I can submit my file. I can submit my paperwork. And these schools, these factories, these foremen at these fucking factories are going to look at me, and I want to get hooked up with the best brand I can. Holy shit, that's how you're thinking. That's fucked up. That is so fucked up. And again, it doesn't have to be that way. What can happen is you deepen that percentage of going out and leaving campus and working on business in whatever way you can. We believe at the sophomore level that business plans should be taught to students. They should be required. Now remember, we think that colleges and universities should be more like places for business incubation, to where they would be taking these business plans that were created by high school students over 2-3 years, instead of putting all that fucking time in an ACT test or an SAT test that doesn't do shit other than get you into a fucking college. Why don't we have kids spending years developing business plans that at the very least, if it doesn't fucking go anywhere, they will have a better understanding of, hey, this is how management works, and this is how marketing works, and this is how I put together my budgets, and these are the KPIs that we're going to have to follow, and this is how much money we anticipate coming. You're learning the financial language that you need to know for life much, 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 much further beyond whatever the fuck you're going to do on an ACT or SAT test. So why don't you, starting freshman or sophomore year, start learning the components of a business plan and be required to do so? And then also, instead of only spending 20% out working or working on a business plan or doing something on the financial side of things, it goes up to 40%. Because again, fuck those tests. Those tests aren't going to do shit for me. And let's not forget about that population of students who know from the very beginning, or it's starting to dawn on them, I'm not going to college. What in the fuck is sophomore year going to be doing for somebody who's not going to go to college? Shouldn't they just fucking drop out? Why hang around for another 2 or 3 years of this bullshit when you could go out and start making money? Now, you'll scoff at this. I can give you one very real example, and there's countless examples. I used to live next to somebody in Florida. Unfortunately, I did live in Florida for way too long. But I lived next to this gentleman who had, if you looked on the outside, you wanted to be him. Beautiful house, beautiful wife, kids, boats, cars. You're in Florida, right on the water, all this stuff, right? Got to know this guy. He dropped out of high school at the age of 16. He dropped out because he said, I knew that I wouldn't be able to go to college. I knew I needed to get started, and I was wasting my time. I said, well, what did you do? Because I became a bug guy. If you ever lived in Florida or spent significant time in Florida, you know that's a really fucking good job to be in because the bugs never fucking die. It's horrible. Because once you get like south of Orlando, it never gets cold enough to kill the fucking bugs. So there you go. I said, how did you do that? Like, how did you start that? Like, how did you know how to kill all these bugs and things? Because I didn't. I figured it out while I did it. And I didn't have any money. I said, how did that work? Because this guy had $1 million mansion. He had multiple brick and mortar, extermination stores all over Florida. He said in the beginning, the problem wasn't killing bugs. The problem was getting appointments. Once he got an appointment, everything was good because he had a money-back guarantee. And I'm like, man, you gotta enlighten me a little bit more. I don't see it. He goes, well, get this. In those early appointments, I didn't show up with any pesticides or any poison. You had a money-back guarantee. He goes, exactly. I would show up with my canister. It'd have water in it. I'd spray areas. They'd pay me. They'd call me back, and I'd say, no problem. Money-back guarantee. I now had the money to pay for the pesticides. And then when I went back and I actually did kill the bugs, they were so happy. They would go tell their friends and family members, hey, this guy is a good guy. He came out once. You know how crazy it is here with all these fucking bugs. It didn't really work. But he came back out again, didn't cost me a fucking dime, and look at the fucking difference. And he used that word of mouth, and he used that to just build and build and build and build and build. Now, some people would say that that was not 100% on the level, but who gives a shit? It's fucking, that's awesome. That's awesome. And he started when he was 16. And he started hiring people when he was 20 years old. That is the American dream. Fuck your ACT score or SAT score. Who the fuck cares? Nobody. But you and your parents. Those are the only people who care. Anyway, I digress. So you go on to junior year. Junior year, traditionally speaking, if you're not going to college, what in the fuck are you doing? You're just riding out the time? Maybe you have to go to school. Maybe you're in a situation where any place you go, it's not safe. Maybe you have to go there for food. So not giving people a hard time that stay in high school when they have no plans of going to college or anything like that at all. I'm just saying for the value that you're getting and you're not planning on going to college, what the fuck are you getting out of high school in 11th grade? Nothing. You're getting a lot of fucking tense people running around you, constantly talking about these fucking alphabet tests, ACT, SAT. What am I going to get on that? Oh, AP. I got to take this AP. I'm going to get these 4s and I'm going to get these 5s and I'm going to clip out of this and all this bullshit. Again, I got to look good on paper. Holy fuck, I got to look good on paper because I'm putting all my papers together. All the papers that I've done, I'm going to put them all together and I got to look better than all these other fucking people. Because if I don't get into college, what the fuck am I going to do? So it's all about tests, and it's all about getting into another school. Just sustaining this. Not thinking about getting ready for life in any way. No. So instead of having all this test preoccupation, again, let's open the doors. Let's make it 60-40. 60% of the time, juniors aren't on campus. They're working on those business plans. They're working out in the field. Maybe this is their second or third job that they've gone through since they've started a freshman year. Maybe they've stayed through a job. And maybe they've decided, you know what, shit, I've been working with this air conditioner repair company, and I see how well these guys get along. This is awesome. This is fun work. Also, I'm in the deep South, hypothetically. They need air conditioning all the time. I could make good money. Fuck going to college and spending a lot of money and making debt. I was going to become an accountant. Instead, I'm going to go into AC repair, and I'm going to be fucking happy. How about that? Or, let's flip it around. Maybe you are hell-bent on being a vet, and you go be a vet tech while you're in high school. And it's part of your curriculum. You're not just fucking around being a vet tech. This is something that you've actually gotten into. And you realize something as basic as, like, I can't sit around watching animals die. Holy shit, I'm so glad I didn't pour all this fucking energy into becoming a goddamn, vet, because I would have been miserable. So you're allowed to go 60-40 out, continuing to make money, putting money in your fucking pocket, teaching you how to use that money, teaching you about the work culture that you're dealing with and how to deal with certain problems. You're in this really great academic bubble. If you fail, if you get fired, no big fucking deal. Your school will help you find another job, or your school will help you work on your business plan, whatever. You're in a bubble that once you leave that bubble and you fuck up at a job, it impacts you, it impacts your family, it impacts everybody else. You fuck up in this system that we're creating, big fucking deal. Maybe you don't get a very good grade that semester. Okay, who gives a fuck? I'm learning. That's the point of this. So then you go to the 12th grade, the cherry on top of this complete pile of shit that we call high school. Because let's talk about the population of kids who aren't going to college. What the fuck is senior year for? I mean, honestly, parties, lunches, place to just do something. I mean, it's not going to help you in any way. You're just getting that attendance certificate at the end of the 12th grade. You could have gotten a GED and you could have been working and you could have been making money, and fuck all this shit. And those that are trying to go on to college, they're waiting. That first semester, they're waiting. They're waiting to see, did I look good enough on paper? Oh God, please, I hoped I looked good enough on paper for him. Please accept me. Please accept me. Back in the day, I'm not a boomer, but back in the day, we would get letters. If it was thin, forget it, rejection. If it was thick, they were sending you shit to fill out, you were in good shape. Now you're waiting for emails. You're waiting. Around Christmas time, generally after Christmas time, you find out that you got in or you didn't. And then it's just over. It's senioritis. It's nothing. Under our system, who gives a fuck about all that shit and all those tests and everything? We don't want to hardly see you ever. It's 80-20. 80% of the time, you need to be working on your business plan or you need to be getting your job. 20% of your time, you're coming back here. We're getting more in-depth in financial literacy. You're getting a better understanding. You're actually tutoring people who are in classes younger than you, so you can learn mentorship, so you can learn how to be a leader, so you can learn what it's like to actually give back as opposed to just thinking about yourself and your fucking ACT and your fucking SAT. I mean, again, what the fuck is high school? What the fuck is it for us? What is the value of any of it for us? I'll close with another anecdote. This is not a specific individual because I can say this about easily a dozen people that I've met fit what I'm about to describe to you. These people around the age of 15 or 16 years old, for whatever reasons, because they were in a family that couldn't afford going to college, they didn't want to go to college, it doesn't matter what the circumstances were. They dropped out. They dropped out and they went straight to a car dealership. And they got jobs washing the cars, keeping them clean. They got jobs moving the cars around to make sure that they did things like made sure the batteries were charged. They did all kinds of things like that. And they continued to work, and they rose up the ranks. They rose up the ranks. They rose up the ranks. And by the time they were about 40, 45, they were multi-millionaires. And they could understand high, very high level finance. They could do all kinds of complicated management processes. They could do all kinds of different things that an MBA would, you'd think, teach you, but pretty much doesn't teach you. They could run circles around people with MBAs from the Ivy League colleges. And they just work their asses off. Because that is what you really need. You need initiative. You need to see this is your life. You got to go out and get it. It's not about trying to make yourself look good on paper and then somebody's going to provide you with what you need. You got to grab this shit by the fucking throat. And if you do, you have every chance in the world to have the life that you want to have. If you don't, look at what everybody else goes through. Look at all the debt that they accumulate. Look at how they feel like they made the wrong career decision. I went the wrong path. Look at the lack of financial literacy. I have money, but I fucked it all up. It's all gone. I don't understand how to use my money. I don't understand my function in a larger corporation and how I can advance my way up. But you know what I can do? I can recite to you the monologue from the third act of Hamlet. Goddamn right. You know what else I can do? I can talk to you about revolution in the Caribbean and how it impacts the geopolitical climate today. Yep, sure can. I mean, what the fuck is that for? And it all starts, the real insidiousness starts at high school. The fucking masquerade. But we're going to change all of that. We have methods from people such as Gene Sharp. We have some of our own. We have some from other thinkers that we're going to share with you. So this shit is just going to be a bad memory. One way or the other. It's either going to evolve in a positive way, as we've described, or it's going to just dry up and die. It can't sustain itself. We can't move through the 21st century with boomer education. Well, this will be the place where we stop. I do appreciate you coming back, and we have some pretty interesting topics coming up, so I encourage you to come back again. So again, thank you very much for coming to Six Finger Learning, and I'm looking forward to talking to you again soon.
Here from the learning